Let's have Owen. I think Owen Wilson should do our third and final hat trick Baltimore.
Baltimore reference? Yeah, give me one more Baltimore reference in an
yeah.
Owen Wilson voice.
National Bohemian beer.
I don't even know the reference, but it sounds great.
Can you say, like, welcome to Baltimore, hun, in Owen Wilson's voice?
No. You wouldn't say it like that.
No. Oh, man.
Welcome to Baltimore. You would say. Welcome to Baltimore.
Hun?
What is hun? Why would you say that?
This is so stupid.
Hi, and welcome to Storied. This is a podcast where we take a story from one piece of media and adapt it into another piece of media.
This week we're going to be taking Ghostbusters and make...
No, it's great. So we're going to take Ghostbusters 1 and 2 and adapt it into a totally different thing, which is Ghostbusters 3.
I was going to say, the way you phrased that was like we're just going to take the first one and just remake it into a sequel to itself.
Ignoring the second one and make it into a separate, unique sequel.
Yeah. That might be a better move. I mean, honestly, a lot of people already pretend the second one doesn't exist. So let's make a sequel to that that's equally as bad compared to the second movie as the first one was, or the second one was to the first.
So there's some shades of like our Star Wars prequel episode where we just go, what if we did the good version of the thing, this in the same media, but just a good one?
Here's the thing, though. I feel like, with Ghostbusters, it was like, it should never have worked as a movie at all. Like the first one, Like, it's so tonally weird and kind of all over the place, and just Bill Murray improvs all over the place, and just it shouldn't be cohesive at all, but it's like brilliant. But the second one, not so much, even though it kind of tried for the same thing, didn't succeed. And, I don't know. I don't think it's possible to like make another Ghostbusters the same way.
We're going to jump right in here, and I think I was thinking about it a lot today because we had decided on this earlier today. And I think the thing about the second one was it was much more about the plot, and there was a much more clear sense of like good and evil, and it was like weirdly a little more wholesome. Where in like the first one, if you look at like Venkman, he's like a creep and a scumbag, and that's like the thing about it that's so enticing. Do you know what I mean? And like in the second one, he's like much more kind of resigned himself. It feels like he's like Venkman light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that was like the big pull of the first one, was just like, he's not a good guy,
Right.
But he just ends up having what it takes to overcome this thing.
It's weird because, to your point, Chris, and I totally agree, like, the first movie is very character focused, and the things that are happening around them, like, the plot is so thin. Like, you could describe it in like 3 sentences. And there's like a little mystery to uncover, but like it's so not important. Like, that's not the thing that you remember about those movies. You remember like goofy one-liners and the just the existence of ghosts and like Slimer and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Like, you remember beats, but you don't really remember the plot. But like there is like in Ghostbusters 2 with what the hell's his name? Vigo
the
Carpathian, yeah. There is a bad guy, like a capital G, capital B bad guy.
Yeah, but there's also like a cartoonish art restorer or whatever, or like he's like the museum curator, right?
You about the buzzing of flies to Vigo.
I mean, it's so
Also
dumb.
doing an offensive accent.
Where is that accent from, Chris?
I don't know.
No. Well,
that
who's
might
it
even be the
offensive to?
actor, and
He's just doing a parody of his own voice. Yeah, it's weird because like it is a good guys versus the like big evil ghost bad guy, and in Ghostbusters 1 you don't even know what they're really up against. They're just trying to get a business off the ground until the very end, right? That's
part of the reason that it's charming, right? It's like it isn't about the you have no idea when that movie starts where it's going, and neither did they. Like, they basically just started it as bullshit and then found out it was real and had to deal with it,
Right.
It's like a weird thing, and then it escalates, and they were just there at the right place at the right time, It's kind of like any successful business.
But and forgive me if because I've watched it 1,000 times, but didn't they kind of catalyze the situation too? Like their existence, like gave rise to like Gozer.
That's
and
what
Zool?
Walter Peck, like that was the accusation, which is like they created the market that they could then corner, which is like that could be a real accusation for a real startup that finds a niche and like exploits it to that level where it's like there's no one else doing this. But I think that it was a complete coincidence, right? Like all comedic movies start with a weird coincidence, and they just like there's a rise in ghost activity because there's the skyscraper is focusing ghostly energy and it's opening a portal, and like it's the proclaimed date, like there's like a foreshadowed like date and it's coming up soon. So like they happen to start their ghost busting business right around the time of the ghost apocalypse, which is just the biggest the world's biggest coincidence. But I think that once he shuts down the grid and all the ghosts get back out, it like triggers something. But I don't think that like their existence as a group caused it. But I could be wrong.
I think you're right, but I was just making sure I didn't forget a scene.
No, it's definitely just like the movie is basically just a movie about a successful small business. It's weird.
Yeah, basically. But what's funny is that like if they had started like a year earlier, it wouldn't have worked, right? Because it's just the complete coincidence of all the ghosts showing up at the right time for them to actually like corner this market.
That's what's really great about it too, and it's that I think is missing in the second one is that coincidence weirdly is the thing that made it work, because like Venkman is a scam artist and like kind of a scumbag, and like I feel bad if I don't mention like the breakdown, the Mr. Plinkett's breakdown of Ghostbusters, and like the most recent one, like he did a review on them recently, and he talks a lot about how the first movie is about starting a business. But what's so good about it is the scene in which, like, if Venkman has an arc, he's like just trying to scam people, and then he like gets invested in, is it Dana?
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver's? Yeah.
Dana Barrett.
And then like, yeah, I don't know why I question myself, but like when he shows up at her apartment and she's possessed, like, and like the stakes rise, like he doesn't say it, but the whole sentiment of his demeanor in that entire sequence is like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I guess I have to do something decent now, you know? And like it's like this reluctance versus in the second one it's much more sort of
it's like more altruistic.
Yeah, and like but that's what makes it fun, I think, and that's what makes the movie stand out.
Well, yeah, I mean he is a complete creep for most of the movie. But like he's sort of charming, and you kind of understand, why people would like him, and then you like him. And then at the end of the movie, he's got to be the one who kind of stands up and does something, which is nice. It's a small thing, but it's cool because like you can see him starting to believe it more and more as the movie goes on. Like he doesn't even believe what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like when he goes to Dana's apartment that first time with that little weird like squeegee or that squeeze bulb thing, and he's just going. When he's like walking around, like he's just completely checked out.
Oh yeah,
and
he's
doesn't
just
give
making
a
shit
shit
up. Yeah.
about anything. He's just
so
trying to get in her pants the whole time. He doesn't listen to a word she says.
He's playing the piano.
Exactly, yeah. And then at the very end of it, when she's ready to kick him out, he starts taking it seriously for a second, and you kind of see that that's going to be what it takes. But there's like zero, like he's just like, this is all bullshit, and we're all going to, I'm coasting on Ray's 3 mortgages, for a little while longer, and then I'm going to move on to the next scam. But it doesn't end up being that. You kind of see him start to believe in it as the movie goes on.
It's interesting to watch him.
It's the fact that he's...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's the fact that he's there for most of the movie, and he's intriguing because of that. And he has that to overcome that makes that movie, I think, so much more interesting. And not like on a surface level. It just gives the movie a subtlety and nuance and like sense of humor and tone that is so much more fun.
Well, it's also it makes it relatable to people who watch it. Like I feel like you need that guy is the center of the movie who is going to take everything with as much of as much skepticism as the audience is. You know?
That's what I was going to say too. Like he sort of grows to believe what's going on as the audience does, right? Because he's like the everyman and like that goofball that we all sort of want to be, and can get away. Like we all want to feel like we can sort of like get away with that level of like being charming and just like, just sort of like, get away with that. But he doesn't believe in it at all at first, and then we sort of believe in it, and he matches the viewer in that sort of arc really well, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, to me, that's the thing I think we have to dig back at, is like, how do we set up our premise to try to, I wouldn't say recapture that, because that's always the wrong thing, I think, because I think the first thing we had to set out, or address, is like, Harold Ramis is dead. So, like, when we are pitching this and exploring it, like, when are we setting this in relation to the first couple movies? Obviously, never.
I think this is not even like if they made it now. I think this is if they had made it like a couple years after the second movie. Like what would that look like in the early 90s?
So hang on. So are we actually pitching an alternate Ghostbusters 2, Ghostbusters 2B, or are we pitching a Ghostbusters 3 that does actually take into account all the Vigo the Carpathian shit?
No, it does take that in, but I'm saying like we're not talking about doing something like ET2. Which was, a 2017
the
sequel.
Blockbuster smash ET2. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying.
Slash reboot. We're not talking about that. We're talking about
the ET equal.
If this movie had existed, what should it have been?
Right.
Right. Like if they continue the pattern.
Right.
Like.
Right. If they could convince Bill Murray that it wasn't a huge mistake, which he would have been right about.
No, because this movie's going to do really well. And be really good and sell really well, so it would not be a mistake at all.
But we are not taking into consideration that the newer Ghostbusters with Kristen Wiig and stuff exist.
No.
I haven't seen it, and I don't really want to.
No, we're talking about this. Like, if they made this movie right as like a trilogy, like a third movie in that series that would have been made several years after Ghostbusters 2, so in like the early 90s, like Sean said. So all the main cast are still alive, and it's in the tone of the original Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, and I think we take into account the time period it would be made. And we take into account that Bill Murray was starting to take on some more interesting, serious stuff, and he would probably be wanting to put that into this film in some way,
But do we want to make it good too?
Well, that's
it's going to be
debatable.
good no matter what. I think because it's us three, so it's going to be just fabulous.
Well, like the best it can be, or just just better than everybody
Well, I definitely want to talk about like how do we avoid the pitfalls of making sequels or working on a franchise, right? Because it's like trying to figure out, really understanding what makes the first movie or the first couple of movies so beloved, and sort of not trying to just like ride off of nostalgia and say, okay, well, we got to call back to that thing. Remember that weird device? We got to call back to that.
Oh yeah, no, fuck all of that.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like that's the quote unquote Hollywood bullshit bad version, and I don't want to do that. Like I want to actually talk about how do we evoke similar feelings or similar like hit similar like themes and stuff like, and try and do it justice. Which might not be funny at all. I don't know. It might be bad for a podcast.
I think that to me, like we started on the right conversation already. Like Venkman is the cornerstone of that franchise. Like Ray and Egon are just kind of like strung along and by him. Like he's been just manipulated, and Winston just like shows up for a job, which is so good.
Yeah.
But he's the foundation of it, and like maybe that's reductionist, but it feels to me like that's what's good about it, and I think really just making sure we service that character in a way that didn't take into consideration for the second one.
Well, they kind of tried to, though, right? Like they tried to like make him grow as a person a little bit in the second one.
But I think that's what made it feel cheap, or
well, right?
Like,
it didn't feel right. It felt weird.
It felt Disney-ish. It felt Hollywood. It felt PG. So like, I'm just gonna throw this premise out there, but I thought it might be fun. Is like, kind of in the spirit of the first one, like, business is going pretty well, this time around, and like, but Venkman's just sick of fucking the grunt work, you know what I mean? Like he's like trying to like just expand the business, even if it's just for franchising or something.
I was actually thinking that like he would have completely sold out. Like he would have sold
the rights and stuff.
He would have like sold, not sold the right. Well, yeah, like sold, like he would have gone into like franchising, like getting toys made and getting like branded sodas, and like he would have just been a TV personality and stopped actually doing the work. You know?
Yeah, even though he was like still like the headpiece for it, and like you would have like photo ops and stuff.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't actually want to do the work. He just wants to
pitch.
like be famous, right? And like the other guys are actually trying to do the job, or maybe they have hired a lot of people, and it's like an actual full on like mid-sized business now, and it's more about like how do you keep the business going? Your startup is successful. How do you keep it going with when you move into like a managerial role, and you're no longer doing like the thing that you loved or you really cared about. Like, what does that look like for the other guys who really care, or for Ray and Egon, like the people who actually really understood the business, and now they're sort of relegated to this like weird managerial task, which maybe is not the funniest place to put them for like a comedy movie, but
Well, it is funny that there is potential there to like just still put them under Venkman's thumb to a degree. But I was actually thinking, like, it's interesting that you said that, because I was thinking, like, if you took a step back and it starts, I was going to suggest that, like, maybe the first sequence is Venkman's, like, we can expand, let's hire some people, we don't have to do the grunt work anymore, and it could actually lead to a place where you're talking about, where he was, like, they get successful enough and have enough income and enough success that he can become sort of a celebrity, just the used car TV salesman
right.
kind of guy, yeah. And he was. I just thought it might be fun and
used car TV salesman.
I don't know what the fuck that means. I'm thinking of like
on
I don't
TV.
know if it's
He only sells cars that were used in conversion vans, or TVs that were used in conversion vans for years.
What I meant
like Pimp
was
My
like,
Ride stuff.
And they kind of have these commercials or similar TV appearances in one of the movies, but I don't know if Bill's Carpet Fair is nationwide or.
I don't
if
think
everybody
Bill's
knows that.
Carpet Fair is nationwide. I don't.
I don't know what you're talking about at all.
Like, based on the quality of the commercial alone, I would imagine that Bill's Carpet Fair is only a local Baltimore thing.
That's what I mean, though. It's like a local commercial. They're my favorite thing in the world.
Well, they did one in the first movie, right? Like,
yeah.
We're
believe
ready
you.
to believe you. And
Yeah.
it's like bad. It's like really great, the commercial he did in the movie.
Yeah, and I remember that to a degree.
No, but I mean,
if you
this movie, it's like not a local commercial. It's like
nationwide.
They spend money on the ad. It's like all this shit only ever seems to happen in New York. Like, can we franchise this out? And then they start trying to get franchises going.
Yeah, but I think we're all on the same page then. Like a similar, like a business, just taking the next logical step from the business standpoint and utilizing the salesman of Peter Venkman as opposed to just the Ghostbuster romantic story, if that makes sense.
What I love about like the Ghostbusters, like the idea of them trying to franchise, is that like in no world would that ever be fucking viable at all. Like they capitalized on a weird one-off, I guess two-off event that happened in New York City. And, like, how would you possibly just be like, well, let's just ghosts all the time now, I guess, like nationwide or worldwide, I guess forever. So there's definitely going to be enough business for like a San Francisco office or like a Texas office or like a Wisconsin office. Like it's so weird that you would ever think that would ever work in any place. Like,
you went from a city to 2 states.
Hi, I'm not from this country.
There's one in San Francisco, and then there's one in all of Texas and all of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, Texas is a really small state from what I remember.
It's pretty small.
Yeah.
There could be an interesting thing though there where like maybe you didn't even think of it, right? And other, like New Orleans or something. I don't know why that popped up as a potential city, but there are other places that are kinds of hubs of paranormal activity and like other small businesses.
Fuck, there's like competitors?
Yeah, and
Oh,
then
shit.
He's trying to like sell the brand because they were the first. You know what I mean?
Man, I love that. The idea of like Easy Bust is like it's like the local like New Orleans ghost busting chapter. That's so good.
We don't even need to take it out of New York for that. I feel like that's a good premise on its own, where you just have like they are like he doesn't give a shit about the business, and he's trying to like do all this corporate shit, but there's this actual like real upstart, rival ghostbusting business that starts up. Like that would have been what they should have done with like the Seth Rogen version of this when that was happening. Like, you know what I mean? Like where they're kind of fighting for territory, and like they have to like the old school Ghostbusters have to sort of like prove that they're the best, by the end of the movie.
So they keep showing up to jobs, and the other like Easy Bust is already there. Like fuck, like God
exactly.
damn it, we lost another one.
Asses,
but that's where I think where if Venkman was like trying to come in and like manipulate and like scheme people out of like into the brand, like you know what I mean. That feels more in line with like Venkman's character and like servicing that thing we were talking about. Where if he's he's trying to sell him on the point, and he's like, you could carry the mark of respect that comes with these fine gentlemen right here who defended New York City not once but twice. You know what I mean? Like he could be like putting on that pitch and just like trying to get these people's fucking hard-earned money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that it feels like more of like that kind of thing would serve as the scam artist of Venkman and the kind of guy we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast.
What I love about the idea of competition, to your point, Chris, is that like because of the way that capitalism works, it doesn't matter how many times they like saved effectively New York. It's just whoever can do it cheapest. So if this other like ghostbusting company can do it for like half price, they would just like all of New York would stop throwing like impromptu parades for like the Ghostbusters and shit. They would just take the lowest, like the cheap version, like the El Cheapo version of the Ghostbusters, which like that would just piss him off so much.
There's definitely a scene in the movie where like Bill Murray is like having lunch with the mayor, or like they're at a ribbon cutting ceremony, like they're in with the city, and they're all there decked out in their gear, and then like a ghost breakout happens, but they don't end up saving the city from the ghosts. Then it's like these upstart guys come in and do it like for the news
they're
crews
hungry,
that were there for the ribbon cutting,
Yeah,
like that's the kind of thing
and just embarrasses them, and all the news cameras like catch it all.
Yeah, exactly, and they're sort of like forced to deal with this, like they were resting on their laurels, and now they have to actually kind of do something. But then they start talking about, well, maybe we should retire. Like, who cares? Why don't we sell the franchise to these young kids who give a shit and move on with their lives? And then that becomes not possible. Like
and the kids want to name it the Extreme Ghostbusters. Or the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And there's one in a wheelchair.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, why?
Because Harrison was referencing a real cartoon show called The Extreme Ghostbusters.
What? That was a real thing?
There was one, and there was one in a wheelchair.
Oh.
I don't know why.
That is pretty extreme.
Yeah, Extreme Ghostbusters and the Real Ghostbusters. I don't know why they called them the Real Ghostbusters. I'm sure there's an interesting like copyright reason for that. But the cartoon was the Real Ghostbusters, and then there was another one in the 90s when everything was like extreme. It had to be extreme marketed. It was Extreme Ghostbusters, and like it was
There's
like
Extreme G.I. Joe too.
What?
No way. What? Extreme. How do you get more extreme than G.I. Joe?
G.I. Joe was pretty extreme. Yeah.
Yeah.
They literally fired missiles out of their dicks.
I don't. Okay, I believed you. Now I don't believe you.
That was written. No, G.I. Joe Extreme was the actual thing, and there was a cartoon I think that went with it. There's definitely toys. The toys were bigger.
I'm gonna need you to explain the rockets out of the dicks thing for me really quickly.
I don't know what else there's.
Literally everything.
But getting back to this movie, I think, and I was in that ridiculous conversation. I was thinking about it, and I don't think that our ideas could not coexist. Maybe that's Venkman's first tactic, the thing I was talking about in response to a competition.
But the problem I have with your pitch is that Venkman didn't, like, the first movie he became not the sleazy guy anymore, and Ghostbusters 2, he's kind of, like, they do a good thing where he's not with Dana. Like, she clearly was like, he's a creep. Got rid of him, got married to some other guy and had a kid, that may or may not be his kid, right? Like, don't really talk about it explicitly, I don't think, but like that was good. They kind of showed that he hadn't really changed by the end of the movie, but even so, I feel like at the start of this one, if he's just sleazing it up, I think you want him to get sleazy again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think what you want is for this to draw out the sleaze. Like, you want him to have
it's just
a reason.
always in him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah. But you want him to get back there, and I think that it's fun. He doesn't feel like the guy who's ever going to really completely learn his lesson.
I mean, it always felt to me like in Ghostbusters 2 that he was trying to be better for Dana because off screen they had some big fight and they broke up, and she was like, "You're a creep. You're a shitty dude. I can't be with you." And she leaves him, and it affects him, and he's trying to be a better person, but he can't really, right? He can't learn his lesson. He's Venkman, but he's trying, and it's like a surface level thing, and he's not really working super hard at it, but he's just kind of, it's just an act, you know. He's never actually learned his lesson, but he's trying to learn his lesson, but he just can't. So I don't know, like the idea that he's trying to be a better person, but he just goes, this is way too much fucking work. This is not who I am. In the third movie, and like, you know, he sort of like the trying to become that cartoon character again, like that scam artist again. He's just like, yeah, this is who I always was, really, in deep down. Like, I tried to ignore it. I tried to sort of push it away for her after she left me and had a kid with another guy. And I tried to do all these altruistic things, but it's just not who I am deep down.
Well, I think you could do that. I think that the other way to do it would be to have him stop trying to be better, and then like realizing through, like, let's say these upstart guys come in and then he starts to do some really like genius shit to sort of undermine them, and then they go under, you know, like he wins, but he feels fucking terrible about it, and then he has to go like recruit them to help him later in the movie, like save the city, and through that realizes that, like, okay, like I have a ceiling, or I have a floor, you know, at least I didn't realize I have a floor earlier, but now I know where it is, and that sort of makes him better enough. Like, once he stops trying to be better, he becomes better, and then that sort of allows her in, or him in, you know.
I like that idea because I like the idea of the other guys, like, kind of being dragged down with him. Like, he kind of like gets them on board with being shitty to this other group. Whatever plan he has, it probably starts sort of small and escalates to a point where it's like, whoa, damn, like that's some underhanded shit. But I imagine that like Ray and Egon they kind of get on board with it because they don't want to lose the business either. So like maybe there's a part of them that actually enjoy it, or maybe they're just like, this, you know, we don't want to do it, but we have to do it. And sort of seeing him infect the others in that way could be kind of interesting, you know, like making them a little bit more like him instead of the other way around.
Well, and Egon, I mean, he appealing to Egon's intellect, right? And saying like, you know, you're really going to let these kids show you up, kind of a thing. Yeah, I can feel like,
or like they stole your tech, man. They cloned your like proton pack or whatever they did, right? Like they have to have gotten the tech somehow.
Or they have better tech, you know, like they have better tech, and that's the thing. Like, they're still using the proton packs because they've gotten lazy. These guys have just got like a trap that just sucks all the ghosts in without needing the proton pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's just they come along and it's just more impressive. It's like smoother.
You know, what'd be great about that too is, I think Egon and probably Ray's first reaction to that tech wouldn't be a thing of insult or anger.
They'd be so stoked. They'd be so excited.
Yeah, they'd just be excited about the tech. So you could see, like, there would be, like, if it weren't for Venkman, there would have probably have been a natural, like, respect here between these two groups.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Like, but he kind of makes it like, what's the word I'm looking for? He makes it like antagonistic in a way that didn't need to be.
He creates the problem he's going to have to solve later.
Yeah, and that fits totally.
That's it.
Can I just take a second? I want to talk about how in the second Ghostbusters movie they fucking make the Statue of Liberty move by spraying it with ooze. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, someone was just like, how do we make this movie bigger than the first movie? I don't know. We move the Statue of Liberty and it comes alive. It's spiritually inhabited by ghost slime. Like, what the fuck? Really?
Well, it's also like it's silly and unimportant as like the science and rules and things like seem in the first one. They're actually really easy to understand and really well defined. And like what you're talking about, the Statue of Liberty is like, she doesn't have legs.
Yeah.
So how the fuck should she walk? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like,
exactly.
It's like,
There's no
it's like
bones
that,
in there.
There's like that little tear in the fabric of the reality of the film that's just like ridiculous. Because like she's not a ghost. You know, it's just like
Right.
how are we explaining this in the mythology of the movie? It's like
Some executive got really stoked about the Marshmallow Man, or like, what if Marshmallow Man, the sequel, it's the Statue of Liberty, and everyone went, fuck yeah, like on a whiteboard, like underlined 3 times, and that was.
I just think they were all sitting in the room going like, what's bigger? What's bigger? What do we have that's bigger than the Stay Puft guy? Like, and then somebody was like, Statue of Liberty. Yes, we got it.
Half day, everyone, go home.
And they're like, and you know what's really good about that? It's like a symbol for the people of New York.
That's the other thing, right? Like, they beat Vigo by like singing it like songs at him, like the citizens outside are singing like a joyous Christmas tune or whatever, and like the good, like that's the other thing about this movie. That's so we're talking about it being like comically good versus evil, and it's very like childish and simple in a negative way, where it's like happy vibes and good energy is all it takes to defeat evil. It's so like weirdly
overwrought.
Yeah, like the first movie is really cynical in a lot of ways. It like through Venkman, it's pretty cynical. He starts out pretty cynical and slightly less cynical, but one
of the best moments in the first movie is when Rick Moranis runs up to the cop on a horse, and he's like clearly crazy, and he just runs away, and the cop's just like, "What an asshole!"
Yeah, like he sees people like that all day.
Yeah, and that's like so like what you're talking about in the second movie is so like against that, like so like flying in the face of that kind of. But
yeah, for sure.
I think it's a good point in like bringing that.
Well, and like the whole second movie's premise is dumb too. I mean, like all of the slime that is like for some reason bad is being created by people hating each other.
Yeah. And
like negative energy.
Yeah.
It's like such a like high concept premise.
It really is.
Like you don't need that on top of an already high concept premise, which is that there are people who bust ghosts for a living.
Yeah.
Like, and lock them up in a jail.
Yeah, exactly. The first
jail.
movie is just you have a vacuum cleaner that sucks ghosts out of the air, and you store them in like a tank. And then what if someone turned that off? That would be bad, right? And that's the whole movie.
And like, what the Ghost Film Ghostbusters is what similar supernatural elements do in other good stories. It's just catalysts for like the character story, right? Like they don't deserve they don't need that amount of screen time or that amount of like depth or
right.
It's just the one sort of like genre convention that like in the first one like just helps forward the story of the business, and just makes this more than just that kind of like a story that was about like a I don't know, any other sort of business. It just makes it fun and cinematic. Right. Like it's not that. So in the second one, when they start to give too much like precedence to that and too much like reverence to it, it just takes away from what makes the thing.
It's
work
kind of what you were
place.
saying earlier. I can't remember who said it. It might have been you, Chris. That where like the first movie's not really plot driven at all. It's kind of character driven, and the second movie is like way up its own ass about the plot, and like it all has to interconnect, and it all has to like expand the lore of like ghosts in this world. And I think that like somehow they tie it into the guy, like the architect from the like that made the first movie's building, which is like a lightning rod for ghosts. And like they talk about him some more, and like they keep expanding on this weird like world lore, like world stuff that they've built, and it's nobody gives a shit about any of that stuff, right? Like it's Venkman and Ray and Egon and Zedmore, and oddly fucking what's his name, Rick Moranis' character, who also somehow like gets a proton pack, gets to join the team. It's just their.
Oh God, I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got earmuffs on.
Oh my God, that is such a Hollywood bullshit thing to do.
What if it was more Ghostbusters?
Annoying. Yeah, I feel like it's like the only way to get the third Ghostbusters to have been good was to get Bill Murray back, like, and bring all the cynicism he would be bringing just doing the movie at all, right, into the movie and just channeling the shit out of it.
Yeah. It's what movie was it? I think it was the actual Ghostbusters remake where he sits down his whole scene because he can't be bothered to stand up and move around.
I heard a story, and this might just be apocryphal. Did I say that right? Where he was recording lines for the Ghostbusters game that they made a couple years ago, and like he was could not give a rat's ass about that they had to get him to record his lines into like a microphone while he was at the golf club. Like he was just playing golf on the field, reading a line. Like someone would just like put the script in front of his face. He would say the line into a microphone and then go and like hit his ball again because he just could not be fucking ass. Which I don't know if that's true or not, but I remember hearing that story from somebody who either was there or knew someone that was there, which is not at all.
Somebody who was there.
Like, you know, we know folks in the industry. So it might be an apocryphal story and not be true at all. But if it is true, it totally lines up with that guy just being super cynical. He's like, just give me my check. I can't even bother to come into the recording studio. You come to me.
He didn't want to do the first one, I don't think.
I think he was okay with the first one. You might be wrong about that, but like when they were like, you're going to do a sequel, like why? He was just like, what? Why? What? What's the point?
I'm pretty sure he only did. Was it Razor's Edge? Like I'm pretty sure that he only did the first one because the studio said he could do Razor's Edge if he did this film, because they were like, there's a bunch of people who like Eddie Murphy was supposed to be in the movie for a while. Eddie Murphy, I know. I always get that name confused with Eddie Murray, the baseball player, and every time
that's only because you're from Baltimore.
That's 2 Baltimore deep cuts on this episode so far.
There's going to be more.
All right, let's go for the hat trick.
One more. There's going to be one more. It's going to be ridiculous, and nobody cares.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I don't even care.
But you're from Baltimore.
Yeah.
So
like,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was
going to say was,
you piece of shit.
No, you can't go. Fuck you. I just heard the other day that the original draft of the first screenplay that Dan Aykroyd had done for Ghostbusters was like 500 pages.
I love that.
Like that.
I believe it.
And then they had to just like get somebody to come in and go like, okay, no, we can't make any of this, you nutcase, and just pared it down to 120 pages of script that they could use. And then most of that was thrown out in the filming.
Yeah, I was going to say they definitely had a script, but it couldn't have been more than like 30 pages because of how much bullshit Bill Murray just like spewed out, like ad-libbed in that movie. Like 90% of that movie is Bill Murray ad-libbing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's an interesting fact for you.
How do we anticipate that in our?
Well, that's what you like. You have to account for Bill Murray being, both not having wanted to do the second movie at all, and then coming in to do the third movie. Like, how did you get him back? You know, what did you promise him to get him back? And like, it must have been that like Venkman dies. Like 3/4 of the way through the movie or something.
It's like getting Harrison Ford back for Star Wars.
Yeah,
like
exactly,
we promise you'll never have to be Han Solo ever again.
Well, I was just thinking about that, and like if Venkman gets like sucked into like a ghost world, and he's just kind of like gone the whole time, and you just kind of check in with him every once in a while, and he's just like, I don't know, something about seeing Venkman in like a completely different reality. Like could either be
so. I want to pitch something that I think is I'm not going to jump off that idea. Sorry.
Take your idea and shove it directly up your ass.
Okay. You're right. There wasn't really much to be added to it. It's already perfect.
It was perfect. No. So the kid. Dana Barrett's kid is named Toby, correct?
No, it's like Oscar.
Oscar, idiot.
Fuck.
Both awful names.
Oscar. Toby's the kid from Labyrinth. Oscar comes back into Venkman's life.
Yes,
because he's really his father. It would be great. Like he wants the Ghostbusters. He's like older now. He's like 18.
Is he on the second Ghostbusters team? Is he in the startup?
He gets driven over there.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happens is Oscar shows up. He's like, Dad, and he's like, don't call me Dad. I want to work as a Ghostbuster. And he's like, no. And so he kicks him out. He won't have anything to do with him. Oscar gets upset. He leaves. Then later on, when the Easy Bus guys show up, at whatever it is, the ribbon cutting ceremony. Like he's with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Venkman is jealous.
Yeah, he'd be extra pissed at him, right? Because would he secretly be like, "No, this is too dangerous for you, and I secretly love you," or is he just like, "No, fuck you. I don't want to be reminded that you're my kid. I actually don't want you in my life at all. Like now I have to deal with you not only in my life, but like being my competitor. It's like twice as bad."
Yeah, and then I think that actually could be fun if it manifested in like a Venkman-y proud way, where he's not gonna just like crumble and say that to him. He's not gonna like swallow his pride and say anything like that to him, right? He's just gonna like crank up the heat on the competition aspect or something.
That definitely like changes the like the sort of emotional impact of him going out of his way to like bankrupt the competitor. Like the idea that he's like he tries to bankrupt them and then realizes that now he's like got his kid effectively like lost his job, like got his kid fired and like has no job now is way different tonally than it was before.
Well, I wasn't still running with that aspect of he does bankrupt them necessarily. I was just kind of like, if that's the case.
So I like the setup, right? We have a good setup, but I want to know, like, where do we go? So like we have this like easy bust, competition on the scene in New York, and it's almost like the Zoolander thing, or like the new hot guys come in and they're like so hot, everyone's giving them jobs because they're young and energetic and they're hungry for the business, and then the old guys are kind of like getting pushed out. But like, where do we go with it? Like, is there?
Are you talking about Zoolander 2?
No, Zoolander 1.
Oh.
It is like the setup of that movie where like a guy who's been doing it forever is suddenly supplanted in a way he never thought he could be by a younger, hotter, like up and comer who's like hungry for
his
it.
Younger, hotter son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Owen Wilson Oscar played by Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's just gonna be so good.
That's really good, actually. We'll get you to do the video game. We'll do the sound alike for the video game of this.
Wow! Yeah! Wow!
Fuck, that's really good.
There's some ghosts.
See, now I know why Bill Murray doesn't want him on his team.
Now I see what it is. Anyway,
Jesus Christ.
Owen Wilson impressions is terrible.
I could actually listen to that for a little bit longer. So.
No, I'm good. I'm all good with the Owen Wilson impressions.
Oh man, bring it back later when we're not thinking about it.
And then like one of his like the other Ghostbusters is Ben Stiller, and it's like you can't just it's just like that dynamic the entire movie.
Oh god, this movie's getting worse and worse. Yeah.
It's Ben Stiller. Here's the new 4 Ghostbusters. An easy bust. It's Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson,
Jack Black,
Adam Sandler, and
Kevin James. Yes, he's not young and like hungry though.
Oh no, but if this is the mid '90s, it wouldn't be.
No,
Kevin
but he's
James.
from New York. He's the king of Queens. God damn it.
Okay, as long as he like hurts himself and goes, that's going to leave a mark, because that's Kevin James's like whole thing.
Hang on though, what's going to happen if this was the '90s though? It wouldn't be Kevin James. It would be Matt LeBlanc or Chandler.
Oh
whatever
yeah,
his name is.
Adam Sandler was in the 90s. He could have actually.
No, I'm saying you're right on that. And Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller, all of those guys are right on.
Chris Rock.
Oh yeah, Chris Rock.
Chris Rock would have totally been in there, and he'd have been like, "Oh, they got one black guy too." He'd making those kind of jokes the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was totally gonna call out like David Spade or Chris Farley for a character in this.
Chris Farley would have been amazing. Chris Farley would have been the fucking best Ghostbusters ad ever.
Yep, I agree. That's funny because I was actually going to totally ask you guys like who would be on this team, and I think we fucking nailed it.
In a 90s version of this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chris Farley would have been amazing.
But
David Spade might have been.
Well, I mean, they come as a pair, right? You can't have one without the other in the 90s.
Yeah. Mike Myers, maybe?
Maybe.
See, now I think there's a like goofball limit, and we can't have everyone on the team be like the goofiest
No, but there's the
dude.
thing, like Mike Myers is a cameo as like a maitre d' or something.
As a ghost.
He is a ghost.
Oh, he's a ghost.
Exactly.
He's totally
ghost.
a ghost maitre d'.
Yeah. Let me show you to your
He can do a goofy accent.
He always has a British accent for some reason.
So where do we go with this? We have a good Act 1 and 2, but what's our Act 3 look like?
So there's 2 ways this could go. There's There's the extreme Hollywood version, which is that they are they're pitted against each other to the point where it's like set to the Nutcracker in the trailer. Do you know what I mean? It's like
yes, yeah.
the Nutcracker starts playing.
It's like the Jingle All the Way trailer.
Yeah, exactly. And you start seeing like it escalates, you know, or Ode to Joy could also be Ode to Joy in the trailer, where it escalates, where Bill Murray and Oscar are fighting. Venkman and Oscar are fighting, and these two places, these two ghost-busting firms are warring.
Wait, I'm confused because Oscar was literally 1 year old in the 80s.
Oh shit, you're right.
Yeah, but a lot of time had passed between the first two movies too. Like, what did the second movie come out in? 89? 88? Like, this could be late 90s. I mean, who knows?
Where he's 10.
Well, it doesn't have to be real time.
Okay. I'm just kidding. Well, that's what I'm confused
Listen,
about.
we're weaving a rich tapestry here, Chris. Don't destroy the momentum we have going.
I just want to make sure I understand the timeline in terms of the story.
Who gives a shit?
Okay.
So then Oscar. So they could be warring back and forth, and basically the whole movie is just an escalating series of, like, you know, they do like the original Ghostbusters do something, the OG Ghostbusters do something bad to the new Ghostbusters to try and take them down, and then they retaliate, and it's sort of a Police Academy-esque thing.
It's like a prank war. Yeah, I got you.
Which ends up in nobody winning, and then them having to team up at the end of the movie and fight the you know, whatever is threatening New York this week together. Then there's the better version, which is, I think, where like Venkman doesn't really learn any lessons by the end of it, and like he basically realizes he sucks, but he lost everything. He realizes it too late, and then they win. Like his you know, the youthful Ghostbusters win, but not in a way that, like, it feels like a passing of the torch. It's just shitty, and he feels terrible and becomes homeless or something. And then that's the end of the movie. Which I feel like
what is with
better...
you making movies about homeless people? Like, you did that with our Mario episode. Where
no, he wasn't. He was mentally unstable. He was not homeless. Sorry. He may have ended up homeless, but he still had an apartment and everything where he went back to eat mushrooms. Okay, keep up.
It's like a Venkman comeuppance story.
Yeah, basically.
I think that I think there's room in either of those. I mean, I like, obviously, the better one better because, you know, I want you guys to like me and approve of my choices, so I'm going to agree with that. The better one is better. But I think there's definitely room in that for whatever they're doing to prank each other, not prank each other, but to, like, one-up each other in a not pranky kind of way to cause something, like to cause the big problem, right? Like they start getting, like, fast and loose with their, like, ghost containment, or they, like, take on too many jobs and they, like, overstuff the containment unit or something, and you know, Venkman or Egon's like, yo, we can't keep doing this, and he's like, no, we have to win, we have to get enough ghosts or whatever, and something that they're both culpable in some way, or it could just be Venkman. I don't know which one's better, but they like. Chris, you were saying earlier in the podcast, like, did they cause the big sort of, like, apocalypse in the first movie? But what if in this movie because they sort of throw caution to the wind to beat out the competitors, they loosen their standards and something really bad happens?
I think that's what Sean was trying to dig at with his two different pitches, though. Is, like, that does feel there's an appeal to that kind of thing. I think from, like, the Hollywood. In the same way that Ghostbusters 2 had that kind of appeal, was like there was a bigger... And I know they didn't cause the problem, but...
So what you're saying is my idea is shit, is what you're telling me.
No, it's not that it's shit, and it's not even necessarily couldn't work. It's just... I don't know, and I'm trying to... I'm just thinking about it, like, because I think Sean's got a point that it's, like... as depressing as his, like, Venkman homeless feels, like, it feels true to the character in a way that the first one did. You know, so if it's, like... If it's all of a sudden, like... If they cause the problem and then they can solve it together, it feels a little...
I don't know what the resolution is. I think that what I'm trying to say is going from the Act 2 to Act 3 break is some shit, some escalation, and then however we resolve it, I don't know. But the idea that, like, this competition caused something like something that they have to solve. Whether I don't care, I don't think they should team up because that's way too Hollywood and way too like feel good. And I think that it's what's cool is if, jokes aside, like Venkman becoming homeless, but then like just turning to the next grift. Like what is it? Like he starts selling like pet rocks or some shit, and he just kind of like moves on to he moves on to the next thing. Okay, fair. But like somehow it's just like he never really cared at all. He never really was. Really
the end of the movie has got to be like there's some sort of like Pyrrhic victory where he's, you know, he's homeless, but like Dana likes him again, you know.
She stops by and brings him
She
bread.
comes and plays the violin or the cello. She plays the cello. Right? She just like the end of the movie is like her stopping with her cello and like playing for him while he's eating like a PBJ that he dug out of a trash can 5 seconds earlier.
Go and then end Ghostbusters 3. Thanks for
coming. He's wrestling a sandwich away from Slimer.
Oh man, him Slimer just palling around. Ugh. That's how Hollywood version of this.
But I mean, there is a way to do it.
Like, that's the fucking cartoon.
That's true. He like joins their team in the cartoon. Yeah.
But I'm not even kidding. I think it's in the end credits of the Ghostbusters cartoon where Venkman like wrestles with Slimer in the trash can.
It's just a reference. We're doing references now to the '80s cartoon.
Perfect.
What were you going to say, Sean? That was more important than that?
I do think that there is a way, like, you know, you pitch it and it just sounds, you know, immediately horrible and sort of a downer. But I think there's a way to get to something like that that doesn't feel that way. It's like it's a natural progression. It's still a comedy. It's still like tonally up at the end of the movie, even though he's down. If that makes sense.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at with the like he moves on to the next thing. Like there is an upbeat for him. It's not just like, well, he lives outside now. Like there has to be some sort of like It doesn't bother him that much. Like he still hasn't learned his lesson. You know, like you don't want it to end on like he learned his lesson finally. He burned everything away, like you're saying, as a Pyrrhic victory, and he's fine with that. Like, and I don't know how the hell we would actually write that to feel like he's fine with it. But yeah, I think that I agree. Like it is the logical ending of that character, but is it the logical ending of like that series? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I think what you're digging at is like just making sure that it just part of what I think the problem with, or a lot of people's problem with Ghostbusters 2 is it did feel too heroic. It did feel too noble. It did have that like, again, like that PG, the kind of Disney shine on it, you know. Whereas if you do something more on that line and it doesn't. It's not as clear cut and good versus evil, black and white of a win, right? Like it's just something truer to that character and how that would have developed.
It doesn't preclude the movie ending on like a, you know, like the movie. Basically, like Venkman and like Ray and Egon and Winston, like across the street from the young guys having won their victory that they won in the first movie, and like moving on. And that feeling like, okay, this is right. You know, everybody feels okay about it.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. They see each other from across the street. Like, it's raining ash or whatever fucking shit is coming down. Like, it's similar to the end of the first movie, but, you know, they don't need to be there now. And they're all cool with that. Which is not how the movie started at all. And then that leading to, like, 6 months later, Bill Murray digging a peanut butter jelly sandwich out of a trash can. But, like, there's a way you can end that where it feels good.
It might be a little bit too desperate, but kind of the way that you were just building off, like you said they were across the street from them. If they were, like, in a desperate attempt to prove their relevance, like they were battling a much smaller ghost scenario with the outdated tech and a dwindling public opinion. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then they defeat that, and then they turn around and, like, the other guys had done something much more.
Yeah, like they're not in the limelight anymore, but they're still kind of just like chugging along.
Yeah, I mean, it's that. I mean, the literal presentation of that, as I was jumping off of Sean's thing, feels, you know, coincidental and goofy, but like they tried, their time had come and went. You know, I think is kind of what you're digging at.
Well, and I'm getting that's the climax of the film. Like,
yeah.
To me, it's like they get they get to the big climactic battle and sort of are outmatched and realize they're outmatched and have to make the decision to let the younger guys give it a shot, and that pays off. But they in a way saved the city by doing that. And so,
yeah, like stepping back is the correct move to make to save the city. Yeah,
and exactly. Yeah. And then there's like that. Like there's no saccharine bullshit between him and Oscar, but there is a moment, in there, and then Dana comes to find him later. Like it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that feels to me like an actual, like we keep talking. We focus a lot of this podcast / movie pitch on Venkman, and there are other characters that we haven't really touched on, which is fine because they're sort of supporting characters really. But there is it's a movie about a group of people who like trap ghosts, right? Like it's pretty goofy. So like having a guy be homeless at the end might feel right for Venkman, but I don't know if it feels right for the end of a movie where guys are like fucking exterminators for ghosts. However, the pitch that you guys have made, where it's more like, okay, they both go up against the big evil, the big monster in this movie, and to step back and let the other guys sort of like win it, just take the win and get the glory and just sort of like fade into the background is the only move that they can make to save people. And like saving the city is what they've always done. It's not about the glory, and especially if we start the movie with Venkman sort of like being the kind of car salesman trying to get the glory, and then realize that that's not what it's about. It's about making sure nobody fucking dies. And the movie ends with them sort of like packing their shit up and being like, okay, like this is what we signed up for. This is exactly how it's going out. That feels right to me. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
That's the end of the Ghostbusters, right? Yeah. And that's a good ending for this. And I agree. I feel like it's, you're getting to a place where they have essentially realized that they're not useful in the way that they used to be. It's kind of like getting old,
Yeah.
Like you do as people who are getting older, you have to step out of the way for the younger generation to be able to do shit.
It's also a thing of like they're probably sick of each other. They're probably like where they're watching the victory of these younger guys. It's like the peak of their life.
Yeah.
It's like the greatest moment of their life, and they've already kind of had that.
Yeah.
And like they can't just keep getting it. Despite the situation. Like despite the raise in stakes, so to speak.
Right.
Like that's not what the movie's about. It's not about fucking getting the Statue of Liberty to move because it's bigger and feels big. You know what I mean? It's like how many? It's like what's next? The goddamn I don't know, like the Sphinx. You know what I mean? It's like you can only you're going to hit a ceiling eventually in any endeavor.
Yeah.
And whether at some point in this film it feels like they've realized that they've already hit it, probably even years ago.
Well, and you should start the movie off with them getting pressured to sell the franchise at the height of its
that'd be good.
Its glory, and then saying no, we got more to do, and then realizing that's not true, and then just selling it at the end, and then you get this great scene where Ray fucking goes into the bank and pays off those mortgages.
Oh man, yeah,
in the first movie. That's his little coda at the end of it.
Or even better is he thinks he's going to, and then he just hasn't even taken into consideration the accrued interest. And it's like
this just takes care of the interest.
I love the idea that like his whole fucking character arc over 3 movies is to pay back some fucking loans. So this is actually pretty poignant. I think we made a pretty poignant ending to a good. So what that means, however, is that because Hollywood is the machine that it is, we're just going to start getting easy bust movies after this, which are just shitty Ghostbusters movies, but instead of being named Ghostbusters, it'll be Easy Busters or whatever the fuck.
It doesn't tarnish the originals, though. Like that's the thing about Terminator 1 and 2, great films. Terminator 3, mediocre film. Everything after that sucks balls.
Yep.
But the first 2 are still fucking great. First 2 Aliens movies are still good.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't stop them from being good. Because, like, what Hollywood would do is turn, like, the people who bought the franchise rights now sell it or hire the Easy Bus guys to be their guys, and that's how the movie ends, so they can continue making these fucking things.
I think you brought something interesting in there, Sean, where it does start where like they can sell the rights, because that feels very kind of like there is that business sort of like. What's great about the first one is like there's that sort of starting a business through line that feels kind of mundane in comparison to everything else that's going on, if that makes sense.
Right.
Where if and what's one of the more fun ideas of the second one was that like Ray and Winston were doing birthday parties, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of like got that same sort of element to it. And then if these guys show up after they've sort of like thrown away that opportunity, the Easy Bus guys, yeah, it does. They are victims then of their own hubris.
Hubris.
Hubris. How do you pronounce it?
No, it's hubris. You did it right. I'm just teasing you. It's nice just because, like, as any creative person knows, like, or anybody's ever done anything like risky or started their own thing or started a business or whatever, like, you invest a part of yourself in that, right? So, like, to say, like, to give that up and walk away, especially when it's going really well, I think it's so intoxicating, like, owning something like that and being in charge of something like that. So I could easily see people like, what? No, like, this is me. This is mine. I am this and it is me. So to walk away from that is really, there's no way I would ever do that. I don't do this until I'm in my grave. And I then am a ghost. But then they have to at the end. And I think that's something really, there's a lot that I think a lot of folks can relate to in that, whether you started a business or you're created something from scratch or whatever,
It's like a gambling addiction.
No, I don't think so.
What?
What are you talking about?
You keep doubling down. You can't give up. Like you don't. There's always like a bigger high to achieve. Like.
I mean, yeah, but I also feel like it's. What are you? I think you're basically being offered money for something that represents 20 years of your life, and that just never seems. Unless that was your goal in the first place.
Yeah.
Or if even it was your goal in the first place, but like the amount of achievement that comes along with having been doing it for that long. I mean, you think about that, right? Like 20 years, give or take 5, probably for most people is representative of like how you would, build a business up to the point where it would get to be saleable. You would sell it. But that's so much of your life that you've spent doing it. And it's so hard to just put a number on that, even if that number makes a lot of sense. And I just think it's like, you need another reason to do it. Like you need, and that's what the movie would provide these guys. Like they would provide them that second reason.
Just like a gambling addiction.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that respect, I guess it's not that much like a gambling addiction.
It's not at all like a gambling addiction. What the fuck are you talking about?
But while you were talking about all that and I wasn't listening, I thought I had another idea.
I had another way to make this gambling addiction metaphor work.
Just make it work.
Like Bill, like Peter dies in the story, and then he comes back as a ghost, so then Oscar has to bust him.
Oh fuck! that's the post credits scene for sure.
Oh man!
And then he just looks at him as a ghost, and this big Bill Murray eyes, and he's like, "Forgive me, Oscar." And then it's really tragic, and he has to put him in the trap. He has to do it by himself. He doesn't even let the other.
He's just like, no, guys, I have to do this myself, and they all like walk away. Like they turn their backs on him as he does this, as he shoots his proton beam at his fucking dead ghost father. It's Bill Murray.
And then he says goodbye, Dad.
And this is the first time he calls him Dad in the whole movie.
Yeah, and he's like, goodbye,
exactly.
son.
And then you see his
son.
slowly his eyes disappear into the trap as he like the Terminator.
Oh man, I was going to make a Terminator reference. So he has his thumb. He just holds his thumb up out of the trap. Yeah.
They're kind of rolling like in that Peter Venkman-y, like, oh, I'm never going to lose my annoying like nerve. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still going to be sarcastic.
Yeah,
he just does like a goof at the end. He's like, oh god, it hurts. I'm just fucking with
you. Yeah. No, it's fine. I'm dead.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a good.
And then Bobby Brown shows up, and he just there's an entire parade where he's singing the Ghostbusters song. Wait, did he sing that?
What? Ray Parker Jr.?
The second one.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah.
No,
whoa, really? Yeah. Bobby Brown shows up in the second movie and sings the Bustin' song?
No. He sings a different song that he wrote for the second movie.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's not
With
as
that
funny.
in mind, who writes the third, like, Ghostbusters theme?
We actually just get
Like,
Huey Lewis this time.
contemporarily speaking.
And then all Bobby Brown does is show up and he goes, I guess we're going to have to take control. We're going to have to take control.
Damn it.
And then he just walks away. And we're like, what the fuck was that?
That's a really bad reference.
And somebody yells, Whitney Houston is dead.
Wow.
But not yet.
That's your fault.
Not in the 90s. Jesus.
We should really make sure that people aren't offended and get Owen Wilson on to apologize on our behalf.
Well, he's here
I
right
think.
now. He's with us right now.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I think we should just utilize him.
Listen, if anybody's offended by, the internet, just be cool.
Just be.
Podcast didn't mean anything.
Oh, man. And good night. Thanks for listening.
And on that note,
Yeah.
I think we're going to call it.
I mean, I've been trying to, gracefully do a sign-off for, 25 fucking minutes.
Well, you have failed,
Yeah.
and now there's a lot of editing to do, so fuck you.
Hey, eat shit. Edit my fucking podcast.
Hey, that's it for this week's show. If you'd like to find out more about us, please follow us at StoryCast on Twitter. And if you have any feedback for the show or any ideas for future episodes, please email us at storiedcast@gmail.com.
Storied is Harrison Pink, Sean Ainsworth, and Chris Rebbert, with music, as always, by Jared Emerson Johnson. Thanks for listening.
How the fuck can a cop from New York... The whole point of the first movie is he's just a cop from New York.
Yeah,
caught
he's
up
way
in a
out of his
fucking
depth. Yeah.
And now he's flying a Harrier jet? Fuck you.
Yeah, it's so good.